You all recall COVID coming in. You all recall the Russia-Ukraine war and the pursuant lack of access to capital markets by many emerging market economies, including Ghana. Before then, we would normally go to the capital markets, raise $3 billion, and then go on in terms of our economic management. But suddenly, that tap was shut for Ghana and quite a few countries. And for us, it resulted in a balance of payments crisis, in terms of not having enough foreign exchange to undertake our normal economic activities as a country. If you all recall, at this time also, we were engaged in an IMF program at this time. And one of the restrictions for the IMF program that we engaged in was the amount of foreign exchange that the central bank could use to intervene to support the cedi. We were given a maximum of $80 million a month that the central bank could use to support the cedi. Maximum $80 million a month. And you can imagine what the demand for foreign exchange for Ghana would be on a monthly basis. Significantly more than $80 million a month. And so in that particular framework that we were engaged, there was only one result. Because when demand exceeds supply, prices would go up, isn't it? So in that framework that we found ourselves, suddenly we started seeing the exchange rate depreciate. The pressures on the exchange rate started going up. We were really constricted in terms of availability of foreign exchange, and at the same time, the cedi was depreciating almost on a daily basis. And we had to think about how to deal with this problem. In fact, at some point, I was getting very concerned because I could see at the same time what was happening in Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, people were out on the streets, they were facing similar foreign exchange constraints, and there was shortage of fuel because they couldn't pay for oil. They didn't have the foreign exchange to pay for fuel. And this is the background against which, I came up with the idea that, okay, even if you sell your gold for dollars or your cocoa for dollars, you are restricted in how much you can intervene on the market with those dollars. And so why don't we come up with the idea of gold for oil to start with, to exchange our gold for oil so that we get out of this foreign exchange constraint. And this is the background of the Gold for Oil program, which essentially saved us from a major crisis, because if we had not been able to pay for the oil, then we would have had major fuel shortages and so on. So that was a measure that was introduced. And of course, we had to buy the gold, isn't it? And that's how we started paying attention more from the central bank's point of view in terms of the gold program. In this context, we also started thinking, because when I looked at, it's one morning, I was exercising when the idea also came, and I said, when you look at Ghana, we are Africa's #1 gold producer. #1 in the whole of Africa. When you look at the world, we are about #5 in the whole of the world. In terms of gold production, 5 or 6, we are there. But when you look at our holdings of gold by the central bank, at that time, 2021, when you look at our holdings of gold, we are one of the lowest holdings of gold in the central bank. 8.7 tons of gold. 8.7 tons. When you look at other countries, many of which we are not even gold producers, the US has 8,133 tons of gold. Germany, 3,350 tons of gold. Italy, 2,451 tons. France, 2,437 tons. Russia, 2,311. China, 2,308. Switzerland, 1,039 tons. India, 880 tons. So you see all these countries and the reserves of gold that they had. But you come to Ghana and we had 8.7 tons. Since independence to 2021, 65 years, we only had 8.7 tons as the largest gold producer in Africa. I said this cannot be right. And so I thought, why don't we begin a program? But the thing about gold for us in Ghana, because we produce the gold, we can use our cities to buy the gold. We don't need to export cocoa or diamonds or whatever to get dollars to become foreign exchange. We can go out there and buy our gold with cities. And immediately we buy the gold with cities, it becomes foreign exchange reserves. This is the beginning. In fact, this is the idea I came up with for the gold reserve or the domestic gold purchase program, or what we call gold for reserves. I suggested it to the central bank. It was not a textbook idea. There's no textbook in the economics that will tell you about the gold for reserves program. That it was out of the box thinking. And the central bank said, okay, we will do due diligence as they would normally do on this type of suggestion, and they looked at it for almost a year to really make sure that, if we started this, they were not going to get into trouble for doing something that was very unorthodox. We were going to be buying the gold with the cities. I didn't see a problem with it, but they took their time and looked at it and finally said, yes, this is doable. And this is really how the domestic gold purchase program started. And we did the gold for reserves program. In fact, the purpose of it was to stabilize the currency and build reserves. And you will see that once we started building the foreign exchange through the gold purchase program, by the end of 2024, Ghana had huge foreign exchange reserves compared to when we started the program. We had bought about $5 billion worth of gold in just 2 years, which was a major thing that we had. So, but what happened? After 2024, the IMF removed the restriction. Remember, we had a restriction in terms of our intervention on the foreign exchange market of $80 billion a month. In January 2025, that restriction, because we had built up the foreign exchange reserves, that restriction was removed. And since then, the Bank of Ghana has been able to put in place at least $1 billion a month in the market. From $80 million maximum to $1 billion a month. So what does the economics tell you? When you have increase in supply, what will happen to price? It will come down. And so this is how come we have had an appreciation, a significant appreciation in the currency. There's no rocket science to it. It is just simple demand and supply that we have built a framework which allow us to build